Merkel Media.
What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Look, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dave on NBC.
Jack Marius Tactheratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him.
Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Muammar Gaddafi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been? Swangles in Fort Lauderdale.
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the Sears hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than
Oh, you English are superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now,
Assholes call it.
with your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I'm your host, Charlie Robinson. If you are watching us on Rockfin, Odyssey, Band.video, Vigilante.tv, or you're listening wherever podcasts are served, thank you so much. We appreciate your support. If you want to check in with us, the website is theoctopusofglobalcontrol.com. Thank you to our sponsors. There's a theme. It's the shields. Okay, number 1, EMP Shield. They're our newest member. They're our newest sponsor. This is a beyond military grade EMP surge protector that you can install on your home, your cars, your motorhomes, your boats, your generators, whatever you've got. You might want to consider this. They have bundle packages. You can buy multiples of them. This device will protect against EMPs. It'll protect against solar flares, lightning strikes, maybe Chinese spy balloons. I don't know if they're setting off EMPs. I mean, they say that this is many more times more efficient than a single-use military design, that it can handle 40-plus EMP strikes. I think if we get 40-plus EMP strikes, we got bigger problems than your electronics in your home working. But it's fitted to the household circuit breaker with just 4 wires. You can install it just like a Type 2 surge protector. They have videos on their website showing you installation, how to do it. You can go on YouTube and find additional ways, or you can just hire an electrician if you're like me and you feel like you would probably light yourself on fire. You'd want to have a professional do it. But look, this is unfortunately the world that we live in. And we see these sorts of technologies being discussed about EMPs. It knocks out the power to your home. You're going to be in real trouble if it fries your circuits. It's going to cost you a fortune. You're going to be on a long list of people that need this repaired. So I'll tell you what the theme of this show is being proactive instead of reactive. This is probably the most proactive thing you can do. Starting price on this is about $389. You can buy some bundles where it brings that price down. It's available in most countries, almost every country. So do this. Go take a look. Go to empshield.com and read up about it. It's an interesting product. And if you find something you like, use the promo code MACRO to save yourself a little bit of money and maybe prevent yourself from going back to the Stone Age in one afternoon. And also to Legal Shield, keeping the Shield theme going. We built a website, don'tgetpushedAround.com. You can go there and check out everything that Legal Shield offers. Basically, it's the collective buying power of all of us directed towards high-powered law firms in your area. It allows you to get access to an attorney for a very reasonable price, $30 a month, $1 a day. You can immediately get in there, set up an appointment with your attorney in your area, go in there and knock out your last will and testament so that you don't get the state involved in this. God knows we Dennis and I just came back from an anarchist convention talking about the thrills and challenges of dealing with the state. You don't want them involved in your life when you're alive, and you don't want them involved in your life when you're dead as well. So get yourself a last will and testament, a medical directive, a financial power of attorney, all these things that you need. It's a couple $1,000 if you do it on your own with a separate law firm. But with Legal Shield, you're going to have access to an attorney in your area that can take care of these things real easily for you. So my suggestion, if you sign up, schedule this in the first month, get in there, get these documents taken care of, put them in your safe, and then you're done with it. The average attorney that you'll be dealing with has 22 years of experience, so you're not going to get somebody fresh out of law school. And look, there's a variety of things you can use it for. It's not just the Legal Shield. They have Identity Shield. They have a small business plan. If you run a small business, but you're not big enough to have your own legal department, but you need legal representation, reach out to them. If you're a gun owner or you concealed carry, someone with a license to conceal carry, there's documentation that you need that goes along with that. All these are available. My suggestion, go to the website, www.don'tgetpushedaround.com, and read up and see if it's right for you. If it is, pull the trigger. I think you will be, you'll be pleased with the results. They tell us equal justice under the law, but yeah, right. Nobody believes that. We all know if you've got the money, the rules are a little bit different for you, and people will push you around if you allow them to, especially if they think that you don't have representation. That's the reason why we came up with the web domain, don'tgetpushedaround.com. So now that the business is out of the way, I got to tell you, I mean, Anarchapulco was so much fun for a variety of reasons, but in part because of the people that I met. And I think on night one, Dennis and I met, and I knew right away, oh, we're going to be friends, and we definitely need to talk. So joining us from an Irishman from Australia, insert drinking jokes there. He is the founder of Awakening and Health. It's Dennis O'Connor, everybody. Good to see you, Dennis. How are you?
Charlie, good to see you again, mate. I think you're on the money. It was just such a wonderful, loving experience. Just everybody on the same page over there. And I was telling you just before we jumped on, just meeting up with one of the local groups here, a Common Law group. And, I had another radio interview actually here as well. And the theme was about anarchists. And, it was just about breaking down this idea of, the bottle throwing crazy people running around destroying stuff. And I mean, what a dichotomy, just getting over there and finding just these beautiful, sane, loving people aware of what's going on in the world and just wanting to do something about it, motivated to just bind forces against tyranny. So I mean, I love almost that idea of anarchy, but then then having to explain that reality, it makes people think. But meeting people like yourself and numerous others over there, well, yeah, I'm still on a little bit of a buzz about that.
Yeah, well, we have this in this picture. Even during my presentation, I was saying, like, the first time I came, I was like, "Oh, excuse me, when is the Molotov cocktail throwing contest going on?" They're like, "No, we don't do that here. That's Antifa." That's those morons that can't even. They're so weak they can't even overhand their Molotov cocktails. But yeah, the Anarchapulco conference is I think people get caught off guard when they come there. They're like, okay, I'm expecting all of this chaos and insanity and crazy people, and it's just not that. It's just the opposite of that. It's a bunch of people that are really thinking, that have their heads screwed on, that are looking to build parallel systems, get outside of this current paradigm. And that's why when you and I met, I was like, oh yeah, we talked about health for like hours, and all of this. And you have so many tips, and you this is what you do, and you've been doing this for a long, long time. And I decided, well, I got to get you on to talk about a variety of things. But you said something, I think you said it on more than one occasion, and it totally rang true for me. When I heard you say it, it stuck. You said, any conversation that you have about health that doesn't involve talking about atrazine, you're not having the real conversation. So I said, let's start with that. Let's talk about this. What is this chemical? I only knew it as Alex Jones are turning the frogs gay and everything. And everyone went, oh, you crazy lunatic. They're not turning the frogs gay. It's like, well, yeah, they're turning them into hermaphrodites. If you consider that turning the frogs gay, that's not good. And then we go down this path and we go, well, okay, we've got gender bending chemicals that are found in drinking water and plastic bottles and all these things. And you go, maybe there is something to this whole trans agenda. Maybe they're being chemically bombarded and have been since they were babies. And maybe we've got some real problems that aren't going to be solved with psychotherapy. Talk to me about atrazine. What is this and why do we need to be aware of it?
Well, listen, what I'll do is I'll get to that point first. But it just reminds me of a little bit of an anecdote, which I tell a lot of people. So my background was in intensive care nursing. So I did that for about 10 plus years. And during that, I also did a reasonable bit of psychiatry stuff in the middle. Mm-hmm. And then I left mainstream kind of health for a load of different reasons, indirectly related to some of the stuff we're seeing now. Just that very, very toxic kind of environment, working with people who are, I guess, really encaged in these very narrow paradigms. And I actually ended up being a dive instructor and doing a few other things as well.
Nice.
Then I got back into mainstream health, but I wanted to move out of what I considered was clinical stuff, which is like all that intensive care body stuff. And I thought I'd gear towards doing some of the mind stuff. So I found myself in what we call acute care settings. So that's the really serious stuff, people hanging themselves, acute schizophrenia, you name it, that real pinnacle stuff. I ended up doing drug and alcohol type things, running indigenous alcohol groups and lots of various things. And then the last area I went to was a thing called the acute care team, which was the really pointy stuff. I used to have to work with police, go out into the communities, pick people up who were trying to kill themselves, disarm people. It was fairly full on, actually. But when I first got to that area, my comment was to a lot of my peers, and this happened 3 times. You can't make this up. When I got there, I was saying, listen, why I thought I was the new guy walking in there, going to learn all this great stuff and, add to my knowledge and whatnot. And I was asking a question, why are we not looking at gut health? And I had one person who was meant to be, somebody I was learning from, say to me, why? What do you mean by that? I'm going, because of serotonin. And they're going, what about serotonin? And I'm going, because it's produced in your stomach. And they're going, no, it's not. This bear in mind is about 7 years ago. And I'm going, yeah, it is. And they've pulled out a chair, jumped into the chair, opened up Google and furiously tapped these keys. And they've gone, I never knew that. And I had almost exactly the same thing happen 3 times. So my first little experience there, I'm thinking something is broken in this system. Something is fairly wrong. And this is fairly relevant. So serotonin is the chemical, and even there's papers about this that are actually a little bit ambiguous, but let's say it's the chemical predominantly associated with happiness. And that's more or less, that's okay to say that, even though there's a few caveats on that. We have this chemical that's being produced in our stomachs. Okay. Now we've got 2 things, which are glyphosate and atrazine. Glyphosate's Roundup. Australia happens to be per capita one of the biggest buyers of Roundup in the world. It's hideous. God. It's getting sprayed everywhere. And the reason it's safe, and I love the way they twist everything. The reason it's safe in humans is because what it does is it interferes with what we call, this is why it's called glyphosate. It interferes with things called glycine pathways. And it also interferes with things called shikimate pathways, which are in plants. So because we're not plant-based, it's safe for us. Okay. Apart from the fact it's absolutely blatantly not.
Right.
The little thing that people seem to miss is the fact that the what we call the microbiome, or the gut flora in our stomachs, is plant-based. So we got a plant-based microbiome in our stomachs, and we are, if we're eating sprayed food, adding this thing called Roundup, which is a weed killer, into our stomachs, and we're killing the really, really important flora in our stomachs. So it's a massive reason for huge amounts of illness. If anybody wants to look at more into detail, one of the best people on this is Stephanie Seneff. She's absolutely fantastic. And even if you believe 5% of what she says, you'll run for the hills with this glyphosate. So the glyphosate is the thing that they use for the weeds. It's essentially weed killer, and they spray this in hundreds and hundreds of metric tons and liters all around Australia. It's all around America, Brazil, you name it. Our food is absolutely poisoned. So that only takes care of the weeds, but then they got to take care of the pests, the insects. Okay, and the insects. This is where atrazine comes into the mix. And atrazine, as you absolutely quite rightly pointed out, is a hormone disruptor. So what it does is it kills these pathways that in insects, apart from their ability to reproduce. And the meme is Alex saying it turns the frogs gay. There was a paper where essentially when atrazine was given in, and from memory, I might be wrong about this, but I'll throw it out there and somebody can write in and correct me. But I seem to think that atrazine in highest doses in water didn't affect frogs, but when they diluted it severely, it actually turned out that it had severe hormone disrupting mechanisms in frogs, whereby male frogs turned into females and were able to produce eggs.
Wow!
So the intensity of this hormone destructor is absolutely massive. And sorry, I'm kind of going off on a few different ones here, but your opening really throws open this great door of discussion. There's another woman who I stumbled across a few years back. The name will come to me. Gominek, Dr. Gominek. She was a sleep doctor running sleep clinics for about the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. She had just this incredible hypothesis, which really stuck with me. And I first heard her talk about this probably again about 7 years ago, of this shift from what she called pastoral living into urban living. So essentially, we were working outside. We were, in building houses. We were, digging the land. And if you jot down the amount of time now we're spending in outside compared to what we were doing outside, it is incredibly. We're talking most of the day to now. We're working in our offices, then we jump in our cars, then we get home. Then we're too tired, we go to sleep. And if we're lucky, we're getting out on the weekends. And we've got our children who are basically playing video games all day. The whole life thing is another discussion, which we might get into. But one of the massive things, there's actually a lot of different little tangents to this one. So what we're talking about essentially is a thing called vitamin D. And vitamin D is not a vitamin. It's actually a hormone. All a hormone is something that your body makes. And this is where the medical industry loves to, throw out this stuff to confuse us. They want to keep the knowledge to themselves. So this is what I like to do is I like to break down all this knowledge and deliver it to people easy. Okay. So essentially, the cholesterol is one of the most important things in the world. And it sits under our skin. The sun hits our skin and the cholesterol breaks open and vitamin D is released. Okay, so cholesterol and vitamin D and sunlight are absolutely important. And vitamin D is related to every single hormonal production mechanism in our bodies, including our hormones, our sexual hormones. And this woman, Gominek, is hypothesizing that this shift from pastoral living is having a severe detriment on children's hormones. So this is one of the reasons why we're getting now this sexual ambiguity. So you throw in the atrazine, you throw in the plastics and the kind of estrogen mimicking effects that the plastics have. You throw in the sunlight. You throw in other toxicities. You've got a recipe for disaster, and people are shifting towards this psychology aspect of sexuality. Hell no! This is a blatant physical attack on our young people.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, every now and then you would see somebody who was kind of like, what's that? It's Pat, from Saturday Night Live. Kind of maybe a guy, maybe a girl, no big deal. Now it is rampant and it feels kind of like a badge of honor on top of that, sort of like a protected class where you want to be a part of this. And it's a physical, it's clearly something physical because you can look at the person and go, not to be a jerk, but I really don't know which category to put you in. But then there's also this mass psychosis that's taken hold too of these kids where they're very confused about who they are. And now they're talking about how they're cake gender and things. And I see this and I must admit, I am losing my sympathy and empathy for these people based on their behavior towards the rest of society. I used to be like, oh, it must be really tough to be born in the wrong body or whatever, 1 in a million. And now I see it everywhere and I see the behavior that goes along with it. And I must confess, My empathy is just evaporating, and I'm getting to the point now where I'm going, you guys just stay away from me. And I don't like that about me. I don't like that I'm becoming desensitized to this, but it feels like it feels like kind of like it's both a physical manifestation and also just like a trendy thing on top of that. What is this? How does this play in? You mentioned that you're talking about you did work with the psychological component of it, but let's not forget about the physical part. What's driving this? Is this the physical driving the mental, or the mental driving the physical, or what?
It's this is subjective. So we've got our objective facts. So we know that we're getting poisoned. We know that the poor children are as toxic as hell. So now subjectively, what ratio is which? And my feeling is it's 80-20. I think it's 80% brutal harm from toxicity, and then you throw the 20% of I guess the adjustment, the isolation, the lack of good production of I guess any kind of mechanism to regulate our happiness and regulate our moods. And then you have these very, very sick individuals who are isolated, who are unhealthy, who are alone, and you throw down in front of them this beautiful, I guess, cast net of a community who understands them, who feels the same, and all of a sudden you have a whole community of people who finally feel a little bit, I guess, understood and get a little bit of solace. So I still have that empathy there, for the simple reason that, when you have somebody, let's say, with acute schizophrenia, they believe that they might be a serial killer or a cow or whatever. And it's almost like a crocodile. If that crocodile bites you, you're not going to have a vendetta on that crocodile for the rest of your life and personalize it. You're going to go, okay, that was something that kind of happened. I wish it didn't happen. I lost my leg or I lost my arm. In the same way, when somebody's acutely sick, it's difficult for me, I guess, because of my experience, to blame them personally for it. And I guess that's where it kind of comes back to going towards things like Anarchapulco. My disgust, I guess, for the people who are throwing this facade of care onto us, when now I have no doubt that this governing body, this institution that's driving all the insanity we're seeing, I think they're deliberately trying to harm humanity. I've got no other way I can rationalize this. And when you look at the events of the last 2 or 3 years, it just absolutely is the nail in the coffin for me.
And we have been we in America have been watching you guys in Australia with our hands on our heads, like we're about to watch a car crash happen in front of us. And it's terrible. I mean, my favorite people in the world, the Australians, man, they're just the coolest. They've got a great vibe. They've got a great sense of humor. They get all this. But this authoritarian government on top of them has exploited. I think it's exploited the fact that the Australian public is disarmed. We know about that from years ago. We see this very top-down authoritarian Dan Abrams, and comes out. He's coked up, and he's giving these crazy dictates. You've got the new gender lady who's in charge of. I guess that's New Zealand. Is it New Zealand or Australia? The gender lady.
There is one.
Eyebrows that go straight across. She looks like a robot. I don't know if you've seen her. She's a peach. We've been watching you guys with like a combination of like sympathy and horror at what this government has been doing. It's not accidental. I think we're all under no illusions there. But it's creating a mental health crisis in your country, is it not?
Absolutely. And again, geez, where do you start with that one, Charlie? The so-called, parental caring structure that's in place to help humanity. If you break it down factually, it's demonic, keeping people inside. Like we just talked about the importance of sunlight. Stay inside and don't exercise. Stay away from your fellow man. The fear mongering. You still have one of these parasites in mainstream health in Queensland, that one of the top health leaders is talking about continuing to wear masks and talking to continue to social distance on the friggin' public transport. Make sure you stay 1.2 meters apart. In the plane flying back here, the same rubbish, which is anti-science. There's no validity in anything like this. Yet I can't um, think that it's just to keep the fear going and it's to keep the population in control. And as you said, this Dan Andrews down in Melbourne, I mean, and the other thing I had this chat again on the radio yesterday about our Darren stepping down. There's a few more people who've stepped down from the spotlight, and the fellow who was interviewing me was saying that's a great thing seeing these people go. And I don't agree. It's not a great thing seeing these people go, because I want to see them still in place, but dragged off their seats and bloody thrown into cells. For these guys to skulk away into the corner, the World Economic Forum, that to me disgusts me. These people should be having the full, weight of natural law thrown at them.
For sure. God knows we could have caught Mark Passio's speech at an 7 hours about that. Speaking of these shots and the people that have been either voluntarily signed up for them, were coerced into them, strong-armed into it for travel purposes, or just, to keep their job or whatnot. Let's say they're having an awakening. They're realizing, I've made a catastrophic error. I wish I hadn't done this. What can we do for them right now from a medical sort of natural health sciencey standpoint? I'm not talking about go easy on them, because obviously they were coerced into this. Yeah, I think that should go without saying. But is there a detoxifying plan that works with this, or are the shots just such large variables that it's hard to really know exactly what to do?
Yeah, listen, just about everything you said there is accurate. So there's no one, one bullet, okay, but there's a few things that are really vital to consider. So the first one, and this is the end point of a lot of programs that I teach and I run, is the power of both the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. Okay, and one of the best talks I heard in Acapulco was Brendan Murphy. And I'm going to try and get him on my show. And you should, if you haven't had him on your show before, I just loved what this guy put forward, because that's essentially the stuff I teach. So, and I'm going to meander a little bit. Okay,
that's all right.
So we have we're all, and this is I think kind of one of the little focuses of the attack of humanity started in around the early 1900s with people like Newton, with people like Freud, and I won't go too much into that. But one of the pivotal things that we recognized around then was something called the double slit experiment. Do you know much about that?
I do.
Perfect. Yeah. And just for your audience out there, who I'd say they're fairly well educated, but just to kind of hone in, I guess, in the direction I'm going in. But essentially, if an experiment was set up with photons, it had two slits. And the idea was that photons were little particles. And when they were driven through these two slits, they didn't look like particles, they looked like waves. And as soon as scientists decided to try and look and see what was happening, the waveform collapsed and they turned into particles, okay? So this literally means that our observation changes things from energy to matter. This is absolutely incredibly vital for people to be understanding of this. The next part of this is when we look at something called the placebo effect. And I mentioned this to you in Mexico, of these two different cases, two different countries, fully separate case studies. They just both coincidentally happen to be about liver disease. These are in mainstream medical journals, by the way. Both people were diagnosed with liver disease. They were given, let's say, I can't remember, but let's say 6 months to live. Within 6 months, both are dead on the dot. Okay? On autopsy, neither of them had liver disease. They did not have liver disease or liver cancer. Okay. So this is what we call the nocebo effect. Okay. And I use two other words for this. I use the word diagnosis. So as soon as you step a foot across a threshold into a doctor's surgery, and if they get it wrong, there's a 30% chance that even if they get your diagnosis wrong, that disease they told you. So think about that for a second.
Wow. Power of the mind.
Think of attending. Very, very dangerous. You got to be very, very careful. And what we know is it's not just the power of the mind, Charlie. There's experiments that have been run to show that there's something external going on. It's not just the mind. Okay. Wow. And that's a whole other area of discussion, but there's some spooky supernatural stuff going on with it. Is very first thing to set out there is, if you think that you are going to be destroyed, that your life's over, this jab is the end of the world, the end of your life for you, it will be. But if you reverse that, you can start tapping into something called the placebo effect, which might mean that it's not. Now, there's so many other random factors in there: the power of your belief, who told you, what's happened in your life, your body strength, all these types of things. But I'm in the little square where I think the human body is miraculous. I think we're capable of genuine miracles with our human body, except if we weren't so poisoned by all these things like the glyphosate and atrazine and chemicals and blue light and whatnot, we could do things that are literally supernormal. Okay, I really believe this. So then what we then have to look at is, how do we get closer to that supernormal age than where we are now? And that's where a lot of the journey lies, in getting towards the magic. So if you can get close enough to the magic, you can heal from anything, including this jab. But most of us are stuck getting there because of a few simple things. And those are the things I'm interested to run you through.
Run me through them. Let's talk.
I'm aware I'm doing a lot of talking there. So at any stage,
I want you to talk. This is it. I want to know what you know, because we did have these talks many nights, where we got into the things that we're doing. Look, there's some things that are kind of out of our control. There are others that are behaviors that we've incorporated into our day-to-day life. Like you said, get your cell phone out of your pocket. Don't keep it in your pocket, and so things like that. So keep talking. I want you go wherever you need to go on this, but keep going.
Excellent. So when I'm doing my assessments for people, what I do is I do a very weighted kind of physical assessment, as opposed to a mental assessment. And what I'm looking for, it's not rocket science. I'm looking for deficiency or toxicity. And then there's another part of stress, which it's such a big discussion. I'm going to focus on just those first two. Nice cat. So essentially, even people who think they're healthy, and if they've got a physical problem that's manifesting, almost 70-80% of the time, I'm finding serious toxicity. And people just don't realize where and what is toxicity. And once you start clicking onto this stuff, then your whole world can change. So the very first two things I'm looking at are the two things we talked about before, which are glyphosate and atrazine. So essentially, if anybody is buying their vegetables or their foods in a supermarket, they're getting poisoned. That's the very first thing you have to know. So, and I basically buy some organic butter in the supermarket, some organic milk and spices. And apart from that, I almost don't go in there. And I've got now other alternatives. So I actually want to avoid going into the supermarket 100%, because they're part of the controls that are killing us.
Yeah.
Okay. So step number one, don't go into a supermarket. Step number two is find out who's growing your food. Okay. So there has to be some local source around you. Grow it yourself if you have to. Okay. But look at where your food's coming from. And if it's been sprayed or poisoned in any way, don't eat it. Find a source that's not. If you're a meat eater, and I'm a meat eater, you have to be looking at clean meat. If you're not looking at clean meat, if you're looking at all this gross mass farmed meat that's been poisoned, that's been given these shots of this and shots of that, being given horrendous food that's not natural, you're also a part of the problem. So vegans and vegetarians make a great point. This stuff is highly, highly destructive. Don't eat it. Okay. So as an example, I've got a place about 2 hours away, and they have these beautiful cows raised in pasture that are healthy, that are happy. And they butcher these occasionally, and they transport this down. That's good, clean meat. They've got good, clean dairy as well. Right. So this is the absolute number one thing: is your food, what you're putting in. The next one is your water. Our water is absolutely toxic. It's been poisoned. If it's coming from, again, I like to talk about the meanings of words. If you look at some of the words that have been used in the English language and how they're being corrupted, it's no surprise to me that a water is in something called a dam. It's damned. Okay, and I believe that there is our subconscious and sublevel messages coming from the words we're using. So I presume a lot of people are familiar with some of this common law type talk of do you understand? Which the yes to that is yes, I agree. I stand under you. I presume you're familiar with some of this kind of stuff. Yeah, So if you're drinking water from a dam, you drink it down to water. It is absolutely poisoning you. having a clean, good source of water is another thing that just shifts our energy and just starts us vibrating at a higher quality. And we've got to start moving away from this, I think, 1+1, this particle minus and this particle plus equals this combination here. It's actually way more involved than that. It's about energy. It's about us vibrating. It's about us glowing. Speaking of energy, then we've got to look at light. Light is incredibly important. I might have had this discussion with you, I think, in Mexico, but blue light during the day from the sky is perfect. We need this. Cortisol works with blue light. Blue light stimulates cortisol. Okay. Cortisol is the agonist of a thing called melatonin, which keeps us asleep. Melatonin does lots of other things as well. It helps us heal. It helps us recover. And as I said, blue light switches that off. So what are most people doing before they go to bed? They're looking at a phone. They're looking at Google. They're looking at their television, their blue screen television. They're switching off this thing called melatonin, which is incredibly vital. It's incredibly important. And they're wondering why they're sick. Okay. Then we go into EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. The later electromagnetic frequencies are safe. Do you know why?
Why?
Because there's been no studies to prove that they're unsafe, because they stopped doing the friggin' studies in about 95 to 2000. So they're considered safe because there's no proof to say they're not safe.
Oh God, it sounds like
clown world.
It sounds like something the Biden administration would have been in charge of, but clearly it was the Clintons here.
Well, that's why. I mean, the telecom companies were the ones who lobbied and who put that legislation into place, and this happened all the way through the 2000s. So essentially, we have studies that have been ongoing since about the 1970s, all the way through to the late 90s, that show the lower iterations of EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, destroy cells and they destroy mitochondria. We've got studies of, I think it might have been rabbits or rats, I can't remember, put in proximity of aircraft tower, the sonars on aircraft towers. And when they're close to the towers, they become sterile. When they move further away, the babies become sterile. When they move further away, it's the third generation that becomes sterile. So we're not only now having to think about ourselves, we're having to think about our future generations. And this is iterations of electromagnetic frequencies, experiments that are way less than what we're getting exposed to now.
That's crazy to think about that. But, look, push, we understand that. I wouldn't be surprising if this intentional, or at least at the very least, say, oh, look the other way, don't look at this is going to mess up our little grift. So I can envision that. Good Lord, we're just under attack, are we not? I mean, it feels like it's never ending.
I honestly thought that it was market forces, and it was maybe greed, and it was some people here and there that were a little bit evil and didn't care. But for me, I kind of started falling over the line about the fact that we're in a huge war here, and this last, as I said, 3 years, I have no doubt we're at war. We're at war with a sector, whether they're even I have no idea. Maybe there are reptiles behind these facades, but I think there are non-human. And the levels of attack are coming from so many diverse places. But again, on the positive side, it's a testament to how strong and how incredible we are as humans that we're still here and we're surviving.
For sure. Yeah, we're very adaptable. It would be better if we were not having to fight off constant intruders that are being manufactured and placed in our path. I mean, just think how much further down the line we would be evolved in the evolutionary process as a human being if we weren't constantly fighting off Monsanto's creations and things like that. Talk to me about stress and stress management, or the effects of stress on the body, because this is one that I know is a real component. But boy, is it hard to quantify. Like, we all have stress, right? Being a human being can be stressful. And you go to your job and you have like a deadline on something, and there's a level of stress to that. And then there's, I almost got into a car accident, and there's a level of stress that's different for that. But on a day-to-day basis, what's the best way for us to sort of mitigate the effects of stress? Is it Is it turning off these devices? Is it meditation? Is it do you find that you just are less stressful if you've got clean sources of water and food, like you mentioned earlier? Like, what is if you had to sort of nail this down into some things that we could incorporate into our lives to lower that stress level? Because look, I mean, I came from a family where my dad dropped dead at 46 from a heart attack, right? And how much of that was stress related? How do you measure? I don't know, but I know he was stressed and I know he was in good shape. So I don't really know, is that waiting for me down the road? You know, is there something I can be doing in advance of that to manage stress level? It seems like a good tool to have in your tool belt, but I just don't know what the best tool is to use to fight this.
Wow. Love that question. And that opens up another beautiful kind of more positive area of discussion, as opposed to that kind of, under attack discussion.
Yeah.
And I think for me, again, I'm so happy listening to Brendan Murphy, and I don't mind plugging this guy because he was touching on some of the stuff that I talk about. So it's lovely to hear other people putting this stuff out into the ether. But one of the course I do just focuses on. Have you ever heard of a fellow called Masaru Emoto?
Is he no? But he's not the guy that did the studies on water crystals, was he?
Yes.
Oh, was he? Okay,
That's
then
exactly
yes, I am familiar. I am familiar on the surface level.
Yeah.
With that.
So essentially, this guy was just quite incredible. If people do a Google search on him, he's a quack. He's a this. He's of course his reputation is called into question. Blah blah blah. And to give you an idea of some of the stuff he did, he would label water, and he'd have one jar of water labeled I hate you, another neutral, and another I love you. And under snap freezing and microscopy, the water showed up totally different. The one with I hate you showed up oily, and the one with I love you had this beautiful sacred geometry. Okay? So this comes back to the double slit experiment and intention. And it also comes back to the placebo and the nocebo. So if for example, yourself, Charlie, have this thing in your frame of thinking about your father dropping dead at 45 and that it could be your destiny, you are bringing that waveform closer to collapsing into a reality. On the other hand, if you are bringing your power and your beauty and your spirit and your goodness to the fore and blessing your body with your own intention of love, you're changing you're back to a waveform state into a place where the water in your body starts to thrive. Okay. So however you want to do that is fine. Some people can meditate well. I find it a little bit tricky, even though I do more or less every day. So if you can sit in a place of meditation with love and gratitude for your body, perfect. If you can sit in a place where you start to try and manifest every day, 5-10 minutes with a YouTube video, if that's what floats your boat, fantastic, where you're thinking, I deserve goodness, I deserve abundance, I deserve love, I deserve happiness, it's mine, I have this, thank you. So whether that's a deity, whether that's a god, whether that's an internal force or an external spirit, but this is, I usually finish off a lot of my talks about the fact that with all this negativity going on, for us to position ourselves in a place of love and gratitude, this is one of the most powerful forces we can use to offset the attack that's on us. And then what you said before, you're absolutely nailing it. Getting that good structure out of the way, which is your clean water, which is your exercise, which is you're moving your body, which is you're eliminating those toxicities, which is some micronutrient supplementation. Don't go down to the health store, bloody bottles of tablets. All that stuff is rubbish. It's been taken over by pharmacists. So absolutely. And this is the big thing, that the picture has to be a whole holistic picture, not just a nuance. Okay, there's my gut. It's not well, I'm going to fix it. No, it's a whole system, which is an internal and an external system.
Yeah, it's really, we in the West get very caught up in, this is what's wrong with me, I'm going to fix this one thing. And we forget how interconnected everything is. And I think the Asian health system of acupuncture and acupressure and things like that, you go, I'm going to stick a needle there and now your left foot is going to feel better. You're like, how would you ever connect those things? And they're like, we've been around for a while. We've been around for a couple thousand years doing this stuff. And it's easy for us to be either forget about it or be dismissive and think that well, no, I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with this, and I'm looking to fix this. And it's like, you don't understand. You got to fix that thing over there, and it'll fix this thing that you're working on, right? We're all part of this symbiotic, this system, like one of those bottles that's like you never have to add water to it, that plants will grow in it and it makes its own oxygen and it makes its own. It seems like if you can get the system right, then you can take care of everything.
Well, should we take it even deeper? And could it be possible that the only way we can perceive these energies around us is just through making sense of this hologram? So in other words, if we think back to the double slit experiment and we're all energetic, maybe this is just how we're perceiving things as a physical reality. But if we are all energetic, everything by default has to be interconnected. So this is why there was a talk in Mexico about iridology. We know that there's places in your eyes that reflect every place in your body. We've got reflexology, which is in your feet. This reflects everywhere else. We've got people with acupuncture pressure points in our hands that can fix headaches. So it's not just we have these separate systems that are connected. I'd almost be saying that it is the same system with, I guess, an expression that we have to interpret. And how we express or how we see it, it doesn't matter as long as we're looking at everything holistically.
What's a Rife machine? I've heard about it before. You've got it on your website. Is it a real thing?
Interesting. The reception just broke up a little bit, but I think you're back well now.
The question was about a Rife machine. I saw it on your website, and I've heard of it before.
If you want to spin out, like look at something, I think it's called the Rife documentary. It's about an hour and a half long. And again, you do a search on this fellow Rife. He's the biggest charlatan. He's a gook. He's a whatever. Okay. And there's actually, this goes back into some conspiracy stuff, which is quite fascinating. But this fella, he built off the back of, I can't remember whose work he was building off the back of. But he was one of the most celebrated scientists in America at the time. And he happened to have an open checkbook from the Astor family. And interestingly, it was the Astors. One of them went down in the Titanic.
Yeah.
And one of them was trying to block the establishment of the central bank.
Oh, yeah. They had to get on the Titanic then. You got to get rid of those people.
So that's exactly right. So Rife essentially, I'm just trying to think from memory where he started from, but he started evolving. He wanted to look at diseases and how diseases were kind of progressing, and no equipment in the world was sufficient for what he wanted. So he ended up inventing his own microscopes. Okay. And as a little anecdote there, I think in the 90s, some fella showed a picture of one of Rife's microscopy pictures to somebody in the 80s and 90s, and they said, "Can you identify this?" And the guy said, "Yeah, easy. It's an electron microscope picture." And the guy said, "No, it's not. It was from the 1930s." And this fella said, "No, it's impossible. This is electron microscope photography." So he was doing this in the 1930s and 40s, which was quite incredible. He was an incredible inventor he had these incredibly complex microscopes, and he had an open checkbook to work from. So he was identifying cells under a microscope, and unlike our microscopy today, we look at dead stuff and we stain it and we squish it and we add stuff to it. He's looking at live things under a microscope. So the evidence that he was collecting was quite profound. And what he started doing was he started identifying different frequencies that work with different cellular energy. So the metaphor there is the woman, the opera singer in Russia, who can make her pitch of voice break a glass. Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah. Heard of that.
And what he identified was that every single microorganism has a frequency and has a pitch that is absolutely specific. And if you throw that pitch at that microorganism, you destroy it. So he started with animals, getting massive success with things like herpes and cancers and fungus and all these things. Then he started moving on to people. And it was anecdote after anecdote. He had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that he was curing from end stage diseases. And of course, then what happens? The mainstream system gets a hold of him. They shut him down. He died broke and an alcoholic. So essentially, he invented this frequency generator called a Rife machine, which you can, set the frequency and it's quite incredible when you look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand a guy out of business. That's an end of their money making process. But again, I'm not surprised. The power of frequency is something that I think we understate in the West for sure. We read about them changing the frequency of music from 432 to 440,
Yes.
and it changing sort of the harmonic, changing the way your body responds to it. This guy was blowing up, destroying cancer cells with it, right?
Absolutely. And there's a little bit more to that story in relation to what cancer really is. And I'm fully of the mindset now that cancer, your body down. It's short of micronutrients or it's being poisoned. And cancer is a way to pull those damaged cells, put them into a space together, and then deal with them when your body gets healthy. So we have this idea of this attack on us, but cancer is your body helping you out. Everybody has to understand that. Once you jump over that hurdle, and I know of significant numbers of people who were diagnosed with end-stage cancer who now don't have it. Okay?
And I've heard of situations where they go in to cut the cancer out and it just opens it up and spreads it everywhere, right? That is like
what a biopsy does.
Yeah, a biopsy.
Needle, you got a tumor, stick a needle, it's encapsulated all this toxicity, pop a needle through it, guess what? Everything leaks back out again. Welcome to a thing called metastases.
But it's really profitable. If you want to sell chemotherapy, one of the few drugs that you can, as a oncologist, you can buy wholesale, mark up to retail, and make yourself a damn fortune doing that. At least here in the States, you can. What a racket!
One of my heroes is you'd know this fellow very well, G. Edward Griffin. Wrote a fantastic book on cancer. Absolutely fantastic.
I met him before I even got to Acapulco the first time in 2019. Met him at the Mexico City airport. Sat down next to him. I said, "I'm going to hear you speak tomorrow." And he said, "I'm sorry to hear that." He just gave me a hard time. We had a good talk, and yeah, he's a guy that's he comes up a lot in conversations that I have, because a lot of his discussions with Yuri Bezmenov, where they're talking about demoralization. And I always tell people, go watch Ed's videos with him back. You'll know it's the 70s because you'll see their ridiculous outfits that they're wearing. But you hear those talks and you go, oh man, that's like 40, 50 years ago. And it's as relevant to be maybe even more relevant now than it was back then. Back then it sounded crazy, but Ed's been right over the target on a lot of things, whether it be central banking or the true, I don't know, the suppression of true health from us.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I love his book. His Creature from Jekyll Island was probably a massive part in my red pilling. And again, I say this to everybody: you can't be functional in the area of health if you don't know about the health, the economic system, and the history of money. You cannot. Once you start putting those things together, everything starts making sense.
Yeah, for sure. And because so much of what we accept as the way it is in medicine, in Western medicine, is only the way it is because the Rockefellers were behind this, and they wanted to find a market for petroleum-based products. And guess what? They just created they created the market. They created the industry. They created the feeder mechanisms in the university. They made sure that all the doctors that came through the AMA got this certain very, very specific site type of education where they then prescribed the sorts of things. And God, I mean, look at what an unhealthy, I don't know when the last time you were in America was, but we are just an embarrassment. I mean, we're the most unhealthy people. The people that come here from other countries that have never been to America before, and they come and they go, no wonder you guys are so fat and sick. You go into a grocery store and there's 18,000 different types of sodas and chips and all this stuff. And it's poison for you. I mean, how can we not be sick?
And that's where I've got a lot of empathy, Charlie. Like when you have people who are under the cosh from a socioeconomical point of view, when you got, your nose is pushed into the floor with the grind, you got your electricity bill due, you're a single, they've fractured the family, so you got a single mother trying to support kids. She feels she's got no other choice. And to a certain extent she doesn't, but to get out and work, you've got the pseudo parents of the schools indoctrinating your children, feeding them, again, poisons, directing them towards more toxicity with screens and with whatever bloody so-called health mechanisms they're getting inside these school situations. And they've been doing this for generations. So on the one hand, it's tempting to sit back and kind of go, oh, they're disgusting, they should take more control. But this has been a sophisticated attack on humanity, and these poor people are unable to vibrate at any kind of healthy life force pro-life frequency. And I gotta say, it's not their fault.
No, it's really not. They're set up to fail. They're just trying to make it through the grind, and you buy the food that you can afford to buy, and it's poisonous, and you get the things that you get from that. Can we talk about your online courses?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm fairly excited. Thanks. Yeah.
People have access to you. I know that I have a huge audience in Australia. And so if people want to connect with you, like in person, obviously you're in Brisbane, but the online courses, I think, is an option for everybody else. Talk about that. Like, what are you working on here?
Yeah, I've got a few, and I've got quite an interesting communication course, which just essentially explains how to just talk better to people and actually solve conflict. And it's based on a few different modalities, with a little bit of I think called reflective listening in there, and that's a really nice cheap course, and a lot of people have got a lot of value from that. But I'm just at the end now. The course is actually finished, and I've just got to get the membership area on the website worked out. And but that just is an A to Z of health. So it's about 24 odd chapters, video course of taking us through basically everything that we've talked about just today. So it's focusing first of all on how the stress response works in your body, things like adrenaline, things that like cortisol, what they do to your stomach, how that impairs your blood flow, and how to get around that. Then the next part of it talks about that toxicity, what is toxic, what's not, water, food, clean diet, health, things like sunlight, things like blue light, things like electronics. And then the final part of that course takes you to the part which I get really excited about, which is that more esoteric stuff. The power of your mind, how that intention can change, how your manifestations can change you, modalities which other people would scoff at normally. So I do a breakdown of things like acupuncture, where it came from, hypnotherapy is in there, all these things that we've been told, ooh, that will never work. And I think once you can get that basic solid structure okay in people, they things start happening. They can't not start happening. Roads start to open for them, and that course came together interestingly when I told you that little story about the people pulling out the chair and finding out that serotonin is actually produced in your stomach.
Right.
So I was running a few courses within the health system beforehand, and I also was obviously had that great mainstream medical kind of background as well. And I kind of was a little bit intimidated initially when I was seeing clients, and I was thinking, wow, all this other stuff I know, I wonder, is this transferable? And I was hoping to learn from my peers that the real cures, the real stuff that worked. And what I saw was they weren't delivering anything. And I'm kind of sitting there going, I wonder why they're not talking about this, why they're not talking about that, why they're not talking about the other thing. So I started interjecting some of that stuff into my consults with clients, and I kept on getting the same expression. Wow, I never knew this. Wow, why weren't we told this? And this is a fair while ago now, and I'm going, wow, really? How come these people, they're sitting in front of psychologists, psychiatrists, they've never heard of this before? And then I'm starting thinking, okay, I'm going to drop in a few more things. So you drop in some more, and these people are sitting back getting mind blown. They're like, what? Right. Nobody told us this. And over the course of about 1.5 to 2 years, I've kind of developed this fairly comprehensive 90-minute talk where I would have people sitting, and again, some of the little stories I've got are quite incredible. I would have somebody, let's say, with 15 years of depression, they'd be sitting in front of me, and I'd say, okay, if you broke your arm, you'd know everything about it. You'd say, I need pins here. I've got to get the anti-inflammatories there. I've got to see my doctor on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Blah, blah, blah. And they'd say, yeah, that's right. I'd say, okay, so depression, anxiety, they're kind of a form of stress. So tell me what stress is. And these people would go, it's my job. I'd go, no, that's a stressor. That's a cause of stress. They go, well, it's my heart rate. I go, no, that's a symptom of stress. What's stress? And these people would go, hey, nobody's ever asked me this. So 15 years of engaging with so-called health professionals, and they've never gotten asked this. My next question is, well, you're suffering from something. Would you like me to tell you what it is? Because I would think if you knew what it is, you might then be able to do something about it. And these people are going stunned. Yes, please tell me about it. And I tell them about stress. And these people after would go, holy shit, nobody told me this. So all of a sudden, as opposed to having a lack of control over their lives, now they know what it is. Then they know they can do something about it. Insomnia is another great one. Same analogy with your arm. Stress, depression, anxiety, they're always linked to insomnia. There's a lot of reasons for that. And I'd say, okay, so tell me about how we used to wake up before technology. And these people go, no, I don't know. And I'd say to them, well, here's the thing. You've got a so-called disease or a condition called insomnia. You've had it for 10 years. Don't you think it'd be worth your while knowing how you can sleep and how you wake, how this works in your body in order to do something about it? And these people would go, wow, nobody's put it like this. Yes, please tell me. And then you start filling in these puzzles. And at the end of 90 minutes, you get somebody who goes, holy shit, I've never heard any of this before. Now I have hope. Now I used to have these incredible sessions where the hair on my arms would be standing up. People would be on a seat, would be crying, hugging each other. They were just so powerful. And within 2 or 3 weeks, there would be people giving up chronic medications after taking them for 10 to 15 years. It was absolutely magical. So just off the back of hearing this the whole time, why didn't we know this? Why weren't we taught about this in school? I started this fairly big project probably about 3 years ago to make a video course based on that information, but digging down deeper. And as I said, it was a labor of love. So I've only just come out the end of finishing that now. I filmed it all around Australia, even traveled to a few Asian countries and just did different chapters. And, you got your questionnaires involved in it. But I've run it past a few people already, and it's apparently, I mean, it's difficult to not to. I don't want to sit in my ego and go, oh my god, it's amazing. But the feedback I've gotten from it is incredible. So I'm really hopeful that it can be a solution for some people who are struggling.
And a subset of that, would that be Awakening in Health podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Into that as well, your show.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of, I've been doing that for a few years without really touching on my products, because I've just felt the need more to be standing in an area of truth and trying to, I guess, kind of wake people up about health and about life in general. But again, I guess we all need that abundance. We all need that flow. I left a very high paying job about 3 years ago, actually before all this insanity kicked in with this jab business. So, it's in order to, I guess, get that word out there more. We do have to have that abundance coming towards us. So again, if anybody is interested in helping me to get this course and for me to do better work, please feel free to get in touch with me.
We'll tell everybody how they can do that, so that if they're in your area and they want to have some sessions with you, or if they want to just reach out online, what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my domain is Awakening in Health, and my direct email is Dennis with 2 N's. So that's DENNIS at awakeninginhealth.com. And if for whatever reason I got a little bit busy, you can jump onto my website and just fill in one of the submission forms there. And that goes into one of my team to pick up, and they kind of get towards me. But yeah, listen, I do online consults. It involves, as I said, a pretty decent assessment that you'd fill out beforehand. And I go through that, and then I'll talk to people and we identify where the breakdowns in people's healths lie. But and obviously, if they wanted to do that course, a lot of the information that I do on the consults is actually in that course. Also, when things get a bit more complex with people with some specific chronic illnesses, there's kind of other nuances that are a little bit more difficult to tackle. But essentially, for the majority of people, getting that basic stuff out the way first is imperative. But I have come across people who have got a lot of that stuff covered, but they still have chronic health issues. And when that's a whole layer up. When we're talking about that, we're looking at more things like generational trauma and more of that esoteric stuff, which again is a whole other discussion. But yeah, for some of that, basic to medium level stuff, the answers are actually really, really straightforward.
Now do you people understand why I go to an Acapulco as much as I can? Because you can just come around the corner and there's Dennis O'Connor. We're ready to give you like $1 million worth of free health advice just because you're chatting with him. So it's just great. Did you have fun at an Acapulco? Because I had a blast.
Charlie, absolutely loved it, mate. And it was just again, I'm a bit jet lagged and I'm kind of still processing stuff about it. But I think for me, just to sit back in that place of, there's a lot of love out there. There's a lot of good people who want to do good stuff, who are actually pro-humanity focused. And, they're the people I want to be sitting beside. I've been following your stuff for a good few years, and, just the way you stand your truth. And I love the fact that in real life, you're as genuine as you seem on the screen as well. So that stuff, that's fantastic. That is, we need people like us,
I agree. I can't be any other way. I don't know. Yeah. I'm a smart ass in real life too. That's Dennis O'Connor, everybody. You follow his work. You've got his links are going to be in the description. Support him. Listen, if you're struggling out there, there's help. You don't have to do this alone. You have to come at this from a different angle. If you're going to your doctor and you're not getting the answers that you want, talk to Dennis. Dennis knows this stuff. He sees it from a different perspective that I think is going to be extremely helpful. Thanks, Dennis. We appreciate you so much.
Charlie, thank you so much. Really enjoyed our time.
Well, if you like this episode, or if there's somebody in your life that you think might benefit from hearing this, you can take the additional step right now of sharing it with your friends and family. You can follow me on Twitter at Macroaggressions, where I argue with robots, or you can go to the website, theoctopusofglobalcontrol.com. Thanks, everybody. I'll talk to you again soon.